What album number is this for Eminem? Like 10, 11? Jesus. Eminem will always be one of the GOATs for his impact on hip-hop in the early 2000s. His impact spawned some of the edgiest, corniest, most sassy rappers, a genre of music I'd like to define as incel rap. Though this genre does still exist, a lot of our most promising acts rose up from the debris of incel rap, becoming some of the most introspective, observant, and jaunting musicians of our generation. Tyler the Creator, Earl Sweatshirt, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar even. Shady Records being a bridge for D12, Boogie, and my favorite personally, Griselda. Point is, Eminem's footprint in hip-hop cannot be erased, so it is reasonable with all that he's accomplished, he'd lash out at the same industry he once stood atop with a surprise release, Kamikaze, a response album to the consistent criticism of his 2017 release, Revival. This album inspired once fans of Eminem to question his pen, lyrical content, overall rapping ability, and criticize things like his rigid flow, comparable to rubbing pieces of wood together, only in this case, they don't make a fire. Some criticism unjustified and just straight up disrespectful, others completely understandable. Point is, Revival gave Kamikaze a purpose, a justification, a reason to lash out at a world of rap he once was the main influence of and torture critics who'd linguistically dismembered him a few years prior. Like Angry Outburst, Kamikaze came out of nowhere, an abrupt rant album built on the foundation of an emotional buildup. One of the lines, though, off Eminem's Chloroseptic remix that still sticks with me to this very day was, "Y'all saw the track list and had a fit before you heard it, so you formed your verdict," in reference to his 2017 Revival release. We all remember the mixed reception the track list received when everyone saw those pop features. Big yikes. Now enter not only Kamikaze, but Music to Be Murdered By as well. He's taken away people's ability to have any thoughts, anxiety, or anticipation for any future Eminem release by dropping them out of the blue, because I quite honestly believe that Eminem believes one of the main reasons Revival wasn't received well was because of our access to the track list weeks before its release, as opposed to the record just not being that great. Though some of Eminem's anger on Kamikaze is understandable, it's hard to take serious when people like MGK, Lil Pump, and the mumble rap scene are subject matter, are content on an Eminem album. I just don't believe they're harmful enough to rap music to be content on an Eminem record. So now the year is 2020. We've arrived at Music to Be Murdered By, a fully loaded weapon with no targets in sight. In Premonition, we see Eminem embracing a new sound, a new style of music, while at the same time appearing somewhat discomforted by it. To maintain his composure and edge, though, he centered the theme of this album around Alfred Hitchcock's Music to Be Murdered By. Difference here, though, is the album's inspiration wasn't obsessed with convincing the audience of how threatening or necessary it was. Still, the intro on Premonition sounds like he's digging up his old alter ego and having that alter ego act as his defense mechanism. Having that alter ego argue against criticism he's received over the past few years, insinuating nothing he does will ever truly be good enough for you people. He's finding himself as the outcast in a lane he feels he helped cultivate and doesn't know how to get back in. Ironically, though, the alter ego that he's dug up in his defense for the intro is the same alter ego that would have reveled in being that same outcast, but I digress. Unaccommodating, though, is probably my favorite track on the album. It flows the easiest. Young M.A. sounds smooth. She's not much in the way of a lyricist on this track, but she sounds appropriate. She fits. Even Eminem's flow is pretty fluid, so it's a good pick. But whenever he talks about this you character, I never know exactly who he's referring to. Is it some imaginary enemy he's built to have an excuse to remain angry at something to fuel this album's purpose? Because it really, when you get down to the nitty-gritty of it, doesn't have one. The ad-libs on this song, please no more. No more ad-libs, Eminem. You Gon' Learn is a very nice instrumental with an oddly haunting yet catchy vocal sample in the back. Royce has a pretty good feature, especially during the last bits of his reparation lines, and he sounds mature and aware of the climate and the world that he's living in right now. M, on the other hand, turns his verse again into rapping about the current state of rap, going as low as to diss rappers for not hitting the kick and the snare. Like, is this really your subject matter? Is this genuinely important? This track acts like two middle-aged dudes going to meet up at a bar to catch up on what they've been doing recently, Royce is playing the part of a guy who has a family now and he's genuinely trying to find new ways to take care of them. Meanwhile, M gets drunk halfway through their conversation and starts beating people randomly for no reason. I do want to give Eminem credit though for the track Darkness. This is probably the most well-written song on the album. At his age, with the pen he's displayed in the past talking about world events, especially from the perpetrator's perspective, is exactly the type of storytelling I want to hear from M in 2020, and he does it so well. The think pieces, the discussions that can be had just from listening to rap music like this is exactly the type of stuff that would put Eminem back on everyone's radar. You end up seeing what a rapper who has tons of talent yet isn't so self-involved and self-motivated to make himself the center of every track he creates is capable of. When you study a world that's much more broad and much more immersive than just what's outside your mansion, you end up finding inspiration, you end up finding more perspective, you end up finding content. Knowing he's capable of content like this, you find out why I don't end up giving a shit about a multi-million-dollar rapper far removed from circumstances that most regular folk fall victim to consistently, talking about how the rap game doesn't like him anymore or how the new kids aren't as talented as they used to be. Look, I could take this track 100 times more serious if on the same album you weren't making light of the Manchester Arena situation. I've been a fan of M for almost 2 full conscious decades. I know he said some messed up stuff, so I'm not offended by this lyric in the slightest, but it's such a blatant contradiction and poor attempt at being edgy while at the same time trying to be woke on the same album. And to be honest with you all, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. That's the extent of this album's enjoyability for me. Don't get me wrong, I was shocked when I saw Don Toliver on No Regrets, but Eminem is far too rigid for the pair to sound natural or organic. He spits lines like, "I crawled out my grave, you better be ready and set. My enemies ain't put an end to me yet." What enemies? Where? No one hates you, Eminem. You're just the neighbor that's keeping everyone awake past their bedtime because you refuse to stop going outside and shooting your gun into the air at nothing. Eminem is the boy who cried wolf, but in reverse. In the beginning, you had legitimate proof that people hated you, whether it be from the color of your skin, your lyrics, your attitude. People did legitimately have a problem with you, and I can believe it actually prevented you from getting certain opportunities. But now that your career has calmed down and you don't feel needed, it's almost like you've created this force against you. Like, no one hates you. No one wants you to wither away. We want to help you. Just tell us what you're screaming at. You pit yourself against the new generation, then got mad when people called you angry and bitter for it. So you made another album being angry and bitter, trying to deflect criticism while at the same time regretting what you said about Tyler the Creator as it pertains to his possible sexuality and Earl Sweatshirt on a song called No Regrets. Yeah, they missed the old me. I think they want me to OD on codeine. They want my life in turmoil like on O3. Look, there was once a time where Eminem was inspired by something, right? Maybe it was drugs, maybe it was his past, and ever since his sobriety, he's never hit the same, right? No one's debating or denying that fact, that's talk amongst the hip-hop community. But just because people acknowledge that fact doesn't mean that they want you to revert to a harmful lifestyle. They want you to be inspired again. They want you to be inspired by something other than criticism of your recent albums, so they can avoid listening to a bitter, unfunny, edgy old man who still uses the bad album reviews of critics living in Omaha as jerk-off material.
Welcome to the 21st century, Buck Rogers.
The bouncy punchiness of Monster is so pop rap. I do like Juice WRLD's contribution, R.I.P., but I wish he was used as more of a feature as opposed to just Hookman, though. I would like to give Eminem the benefit of the doubt and say that maybe this would have come across as a bit more complete if Juice WRLD could have added more to it. Genius goes as far as to tell us that Eminem rapped 224 words, which is 328 syllables at 7.46 words per second. That's 10.93 syllables per second. Interestingly enough, not really at all. This is much faster than the world-recognized verse in Rap God, where Eminem rapped 6.46 words per second. Who gives a shit? I don't care how fast you can rap okay? But let's say you're one of the few people out there that does care about fast rapping. You want to be the enemy of the demon who went in me and be on the receiving end of me. What stupidity it'd be. Want a battle? I'm available. I'm blowing up like an inflatable. I'm undebatable. I'm unavoidable. I'm unevadable. I'm on the toilet bowl, I got a trailer full of money, and I'm paid in full. I don't care if you can rap fast if your verse is full of bullshit. Why is Yaya a song? Why y'all got Black Thought rapping over a People Under the Stairs instrumental? Like, no disrespect, but this song sounds like it's being haunted by a ghost with autism. No amount of Q-Tip, Woo, or Ice Cube love can save this track for me. And I love Black Thought's feature. Even Royce has a good feature, but the instrumental is so ugly and abrasive. Track Stepdad, M. I don't care about your stepdad. Even if I was open to caring about your stepdad, it'd be a hell of a lot easier trying to do so if I didn't have to deal with this. Stepdad. I don't think I've ever hated a guitar more either, because it follows the rhythm of Eminem's hook. So just when you thought you had enough of Stepdad, the guitar in the back throughout the entire song won't allow you to forget it. The hook on Little Engine. I have the right to remain violent. Any rhyme that I say can and will be used against you. Like, this is incel rap at its finest. You deserve to be bullied for these lines. And it was quirky and haunting and off-putting and somewhat funny and comedic when you were younger because you were rebelling against something. Whether that something be society, your past, yourself. It was forgivable, at least to me, but today you're not being bullied for being a rebel. You're being bullied for not growing up. This stuff is no longer entertaining coming from you. You no longer have a reason to rebel. Who are you fighting? And what are you fighting for? Is it for approval? You mean the #1 selling rap artist of all time is fighting for approval? So can you, in your stands, just like the rest of the world, not aroused by how fast you can rap, admit numbers don't mean a thing if you feel like your footprint is fading? Do I need to get into the relationship / sexier cuts on the album? Farewell, In Too Deep, those kind of nights. M isn't a good singer in the slightest, yet showcases this weird ability when talking relationships to make me feel like the women he's associating with don't know if he's about to have sex with them or kill them. The lack of vocal flexibility in Eminem's voice makes the hooks all over this album without a feature incredibly stale and dry. Extraterrestrial with these "it's lit" and skirt ad-libs in the background. Go ahead and tell me he's just making fun of the new generation, dude. Okay, so he's making fun of them by being twice as terrible as they are, right? Everybody else just doesn't get the joke. We just aren't in on it. It flew over everyone else's head. It sounds amazing. The songs with features do act as a nice vacation away from Eminem's lack of fluidity when it comes to his verses, because a lot of the time it sounds like he's vocally dry jacking himself before we get to a hook. Royce performs well, Black Thought performs well, Paak performs well, Don Toliver, Young M.A, Juice WRLD, they all did their thing. I think Eminem picked some really solid feature artists, and I think there's the production here that is notable as well, because it's significantly superior to any of the content that we got off of the Revival, off of Kamikaze. It sounds modern, it sounds fluid, it's mixed well, but the weakest part of this album remains Eminem himself. This album works like an awful stench the closer and closer you get to the main source of the odor. Didn't like the awful ballad-like foundation that'd easily be laid out for any pop star, but it's Eminem rapping over it instead on Leaving Heaven. Well, here's another ass cannon of a track. Farewell. Like, my nigga, what the fuck? I think most of us still give Eminem a chance because a lot of us, young men especially, when we were growing up, there was probably a lack of overall found identity. So you kind of reveled in listening to a person like Eminem because he was so confident and assured of himself when it came to what he wanted to talk about, when he wanted to rap about. But there comes a point in time where the guy who's rapping about doing whatever he wants to do finally attains his own identity and stops catering to other children that have yet to find their identity. Because I feel like that's exactly what this music is for. Kids that haven't found themselves yet. It sounds all over the place, it sounds confused, it contradicts itself so often, it's drowned out in its own ego. It's Midlife Crisis, the album. It's frustrating knowing this because we have other acts that are around Eminem's age that profound content and subject matter and have evolved beyond what they used to be, while at the same time remaining relevant, is kind of acting like you can't do that. And like I said before, the stans can get angry at everyone who throws criticism at this album as long as they want to, but until you realize that the guy that you worship as your god is still unhappy despite being #1, you won't acknowledge that there's no satisfaction in being the biggest when you're no longer respected as one of the GOATs. A lot of you people that love Eminem just love Eminem, but he loves rap. I understand why he's still angry, but lashing out like this is the last thing that people are gonna respect and acknowledge your pen for. And there are a couple of diamonds that can be found in the rough. One track here where he talks about, his relationship with his drug habit and potential that the track Stepdad and Leaving Heaven both had to just be one track about Eminem having issues with his father figures and how he's glad he's not them and how he's glad he left them behind. It could have been a really great, beautiful, introspective, developing track, but Eminem just used it to be edgy. If you love this album, keep loving it. I doubt anything I say is going to change that fact for you. But if you're like me and you're just tired of listening to the same old from a rapper who's been there, done that, and who isn't satisfied with it because people criticize him now, if you've been a fan since the beginning and now you're watching his fall from grace, you understand my frustration. I would rather him retire than keep making music like this. So that's how I feel about it. Great artist, a tough time growing up. That's how I feel about it. Let me know how you felt about it in the comment section down below. I'm interested to hear what you have to say, and that's it. That's all I got. I'll see y'all next time. And if you have a problem with anything I've said, I would love to discuss this with an Eminem fan, but I never see you niggas outside, so